Right, everyone, Celtic don't have a European fixture this midweek. It's domestic duty. We're on cup duty away to Motherwell in the quarter-final of the Premier Sports Cup. So in the lead up to this domestic match, we felt that we would talk about European football. Because yesterday, more information was made available about how UEFA's three competitions, Champions League, Europa League, Conference League, are changing from 2024. Now, we've covered this a wee bit on the channel, maybe 2 or 3 videos over the last couple of years, and 2024 has always seemed very far away. Suddenly now, as we sit, a couple of months, 2 months and a half away from 2023 beginning, it seems pretty close. We're talking the season after next that all these changes are going to come in. So what are the changes? We're going to visit that today. Now, I should say right away that the information we are using on today's video comes from the European Club Association, or the ECA. They are the body which basically represents European football clubs and looks out for them. Celtic are one of their many members. They are recognised by UEFA and they're involved in discussions with UEFA and other key, I want to say stakeholders. Never really did well at business at school, but I'm going to go with stakeholders. Anytime there's going to be change in European football, the ECA are involved and they basically fight for what the clubs want. I think they're Celtic's friends. They certainly have Celtic's interest, but they also kind of want the big clubs to do well as well. So that's who they are, and the slides that you will see today on this video are taken from I'm completely lost, sorry, presentation, PowerPoint. This isn't my kind of thing. I've linked it below in the description anyway. It's a presentation. You can have a look at the various slides. We've picked out the best ones for this video. So, at the moment, there are 96 clubs in the competitions proper. That's the Champions League group stage, Europa League group stage, and the Conference League group stage. 32 in each competition, total of 96. Now, from 2024, they are each going to go up to 36 teams, bringing the total number to 108. So there'll be 12 new teams getting proper competition football. If you notice how I've not said group stage football, that's because the group stage is no more and it's being replaced by this single league of 36 teams. These teams will play a selection of opponents. This gives a wee bit of an indication of what you're looking at there. So basically, and I'll go in a wee bit more in depth in this in a few minutes, but you will play some of the best teams, some of the middle ranking teams, and some of the, let's face it, Celtics of the Champions League. I hate to say that, but that's kind of where we're at the moment. We are one of the weaker teams, and that's the way it's going to work. There's no longer going to be a group stage. It's going to be one league of 36 teams. You play a selection of matches, and it all forms on one giant league table with 36 teams. A 36-team league table. How long is that going to take to go over that? Oh, we're doing well. We're 29th in the league. All that kind of chat. So we've got that to look forward to. Now, on the topic of how many fixtures are going to be played by each team in this, there was chat initially that it was going to be 10 per team, so 5 at home, 5 away. This has been reduced to 8 matches per team in the Champions League and the Europa League. That's 4 at home and 4 away, so 2 more in total than is currently the case in the group stage. And for some strange reason, just 6 matches in the Conference League, 3 at home and 3 away. In terms of the calendar, there are still 10 weeks available to play these matches. And as you can see there, you've got the 8 for the Champions League, 8 for the Europa League, and 6 for the Europa Conference League. Now, there is a statement there where it says that 1 exclusive match week for each competition. So the Champions League will have a midweek completely to itself, with no Europa League, no Conference League being played in the same midweek. And the same will actually happen for the other two as well. So there'll be a purely Europa League midweek, when I think they'll have matches on Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday, and the same will go for the Conference League. This is actually a wee look at what the calendar could look like. Now, it seems like there's weekend football there as well. I've not seen that confirmed anywhere, but that seems to suggest that we might get the odd Saturday Champions League match as well. I certainly wouldn't be surprised by that, and it just gives a bit of a idea of how much European football is going to take over the calendar. If it hasn't already, it's only going to get more with these more matches coming. Now, on the actual seedings and how the draw will be made, as I said, I would touch on this later on in the video. If we just keep it to the Champions League and the Europa League, the 36 teams will be divided into 4 pots of 9 teams. Each side will face 2 sides from each pot, one at home and one away. So for example, if Celtic were in this and we're in pot 4 almost certainly, we'd be looking at perhaps Bayern Munich at home, maybe Man City away, but we couldn't then also have like Real Madrid, for example. You could only play 2 of the very top teams, and then 2 from pot 2, 2 from pot 3 and 2 from pot 4 as well. Now, moving beyond the league stage or the group stage, whatever you do want to call it. And if we just go back to this earlier slide, the key thing to mention is that there will no longer be a drop down to other competitions. So as you can see on the right hand side, this is for, say, the Champions League. The top 8 teams would go automatically through to the round of 16 in green there. You then have all the yellow teams, so that's 16 teams from 9th to 24th going into a kind of playoff round to get to the round of 16 and play those top 8 teams. And then you've got the bottom 12 sides in red there. Now, I actually think that's a mistake in this slide that they've got round of 16 written there in the red circle. That should actually say eliminated from Europe, because that's one of the big takeaways here that have been announced, is that there's no longer going to be a drop in or drop out from the Champions League going into the Europa League. You know how this season, if we'd have finished 3rd in our Champions League group, still could happen, real outside chance of it, we will drop into the Europa League. From 2024, if you're in the Champions League main tournament and you don't make it through to the knockout rounds, you are out of Europe for that season. You no longer drop into the Europa League, and the same goes for dropping out of the Europa League into the Conference League. That's been scrapped altogether. So I'm not totally sure how to feel about that. The other thing I was thinking is that if we do ever end up in the Europa League, it kind of improves our chances of going on a run, because you're not going to have teams dropping out of the Champions League into the Europa League. So we may get some more outside winners in the Europa League and the Conference League going forward. It's just the way that these UEFA changes are coming in. So as I say, not totally sure how to feel about that. So if we just kind of summarise a wee bit in terms of the key changes just on this slide, I'll just run through it. So on the left-hand side, they say new system, more games and top-line growth. Higher number of matches, so the Champions League has more matches. What's that? 64 more matches. The Europa League has more matches, and the Conference League has marginally more matches as well. Gross revenues are up as well, a good chunk, so there'll be more money on offer for clubs like Celtic if we can do well. More participating teams, as we touched on at the start, more teams, 12 new teams. And just want to kind of jump down to the last bit there, because I think this is kind of hidden away in the presentation, but I think it's quite an important bit. Rebalancing more in favour of individual club coefficient rather than association ranking. Now, what that basically means is that they're going to reward clubs' individual performances more than they do currently, rather than the country, which I think is good for Celtic overall. An example of this is that currently, when the Champions League winner already qualifies through their league, so Real Madrid last season, the spare place goes to the next best league. Remember, there was all that chat last year about Scotland actually, and the Scottish winner of the league qualifying for the Champions League if the Champions League winner also qualified through their league, and that dominated the kind of, well, they won't they chat for a season. And then it turned out that we didn't even need that because Russia were banned from Europe and we qualified automatically anyway. Ukraine actually ended up getting the place, funnily enough, with our next opponent Shakhtar taking it. But in future that won't be the case. It won't go to the next best country, it'll go to the next best individual club as per the club coefficient. So it'll basically look at the entire champions path, every team all the way back to the first qualifying round, and the single team with the best coefficient ranking or points total will go straight into the group stage, which I think is good for Celtic going forward. Assuming that we can get our own club coefficient up, it could give us an opportunity of automatic Champions League football, even if Scotland's ranking falls. And just on that last point, when we're talking about Scotland, I've had a few people asking about where Scotland stands currently after a pretty dire season so far. And let's face it, a European campaign that may well be over in a couple of weeks. Probably will. I mean, I don't think ourselves, Rangers or Hearts, are going to go any further in Europe. Scotland currently sitting on a dire 2.9 points this year. Now, a reminder that there is a year lag between the results on the coefficient table and the actual UEFA qualification. So the qualification for next season has already been sorted at the end of last season, if that makes sense. So what we do know is that we are guaranteed to have the Premiership winners in the Champions League group stage next season, just like last season. So if we win the league, we're definitely in the Champions League next season. No ifs, no buts. The year after that would have to be in the top 10. And even then, 11th is possibly going to be good enough, assuming the Champions League winners also qualify. Then in 2024, when the new system comes in, that last wee bit I touched on there changes, but nothing else really changes too much in terms of Celtic's qualification. If Scotland can stay in the top 10 nations, which is going to become harder and harder as we're kind of losing more and more points off the far end of the scale, then if we can keep doing that, the league winners will continue to qualify for the Champions League group stage. So that's kind of where we're at. The key things, just to summarise and take away from this video, all three UEFA competitions are going to a 36-team single league from 2024. The Champions League will have 8 matches per team. The Europa League will have 8 matches per team. Conference League, 6 matches per team. There will no longer be a drop down from the Champions League to the Europa League or from the Europa League to the Conference League. And finally, as far as I'm concerned, Scotland is still in a strong position to have an automatic place in the Champions League for the league winner in years to come, but it's going to become more and more difficult as time goes on. So that's kind of where we're at. It's exciting. I know generally people don't tend to like change, and I know a lot of people will probably look at the Champions League format at the moment and have the mindset of, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And I do agree with that to a large extent. I think the Champions League is fine, but equally as a Celtic fan, having 8 European matches against 8 different opponents, to me, is more exciting than having 6 against 3 different opponents. I mean, I think it's more teams coming to Celtic Park, it's more glamour for us, and more money as well. So I think it's a good thing, this. I should say, if you do have any questions about what I've spoken about in today's video, fire them below in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them. And just a reminder that I have put that presentation with all those slides into the description for you to have a browse as well. They explain everything probably better than I have in there. Just a wee bit more lengthy. Tomorrow we play Motherwell, Premier Sports Cup, last 8. Remember, the game kicks off at a bizarre kick-off time of 6:15 p.m. This is Premier Sports trying to get 2 matches into one evening. We're the early kick-off, 6:15 p.m. On Premier Sports, obviously. We will be back after the game with the reaction, hoping for a routine night. I think it'll be a tough game. They gave us a tough game a few weeks ago, and Fir Park is never easy, but hopefully we can get safely through to the semis, get back to Hampden, where, let's face it, we've looked relatively good over the last kind of few seasons. Just, I think, one defeat there we've had in a good few years. So, yes, we shall speak to you after the game tomorrow night. Any questions on today's video, fire them below, and we'll speak to you then.